Haven't done this in a while. Let's go ahead and give our top 10 Mets prospects going into the 2025 season. We love to talk prospects over here on the Mets'd channel, so make sure you are subscribed on the podcast feed or to the YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the prospect content that we give you throughout the year. We've got our 10 favorites, myself and James. James, I'm going to lead it with you. Start it off. Who you got at number 10?
Got it. My number 10 prospect, and again, guys, Mark and I didn't confer these lists. We've not seen each other's lists. We're going head-to-head right here. My number 10 is recent Mets draft pick Johnantui. Big left-handed pitcher out of Duke. We gave a lot of great insight on John Santucci once he got in the draft, but the thing to know is here we have a big left-handed pitcher with a fastball that works really well on the top of the zone, get up to 97 miles an hour with that really good backspin, that good IVB, that good carry that gets up on the hitters. It can get up to 20 inches in vertical break, which would be some of the highest for any left-handed pitcher in baseball in general. And last year in college, with Duke, had a 30% swing and miss rate inside the strike zone, which is tremendous. Also would have been one of the best in Major League. Of course, comparatively, it's college, but just saying, when he throws that pitch in the zone, gets tons of swings and misses on it. He also has a great slider, had over 50% whiff rate at Duke last year, and he has a very real changeup that can work against right-handed batters. So right now, you have a lefty who it was a college pitcher at a program that produces some MLB talent, and you have someone that already has 3 pitches that can get hitters out. That changeup is going to be the real key to him for him to be a starter in the major leagues. Any pitcher that gets drafted is kind of always on the edge of reliever starter line, but having the massive slider, having a fastball works against both sides, and potentially this changeup coming along that can get right-handed hitters out. I think John Santucci could be the next big pitching Mets riser in the system this coming year.
Yeah, no, I was definitely considering Santucci just because we didn't get to see him pitch this year. I left him off of my top 10, but as you said, second round pick in the last draft. There's definitely some hype and some helium around Jonathan Santucci. Can't wait to see him get on the mound. I ended up going with Boston Barrow, someone who I feel like might make it onto your list. He ended up getting called up to high A in Brooklyn last year in 11 games towards the end of the season as a 19-year-old. Granted, it wasn't great, but we know left-handed hitters always struggle in Brooklyn because you're hitting into the ocean. Also worth noting, we are not including any players that have major league service time on this list. We are just simply talking about prospects right now, so you're not going to see Acuna or Mauricio, Christian Scott, those kind of guys. But the thing that I like about Barrow, did really, really well as a 19-year-old in St. Lucie and Low A, had a near 800 OPS. Seems like he can play a bunch of infield positions, second base, third base, even a little bit of shortstop. A really nice left-handed swing, and he's just gotten better and better and better along with a good frame, and he seems pretty comfortable at the plate. Good zone recognition, doesn't really chase too often. I don't know what the ceiling on a guy like Boston Barrow could be, but right now, from the trajectory that we've seen over the past year, things are looking up for a guy like Boston Barrow, who the Mets kind of snuck away as a draft pick a couple years ago.
Things are definitely up for Boston Barrow. I'm happy you had him there. Transitions nicely. He's my number 9 prospect in the Mets top 10 list. And the Mets snuck him away from UCLA. He was a UCLA commit. You don't really often get players in the draft who are committed to these big powerhouse schools like UCLA, Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Mets have gotten a few of those guys. Trey Snyder was on my honorable mention, but he did not make the list. But the thing about Barrow that I think does give him tons of upside is that we're seeing a pretty good on-base ability in these low minors. I say a lot of times that it's nervous sometimes. You'll know if walks are going to translate to as your levels go up in the minor leagues as much as strikeouts will. You're probably expecting a little bit of a strikeout uptick until you mature when you go up a level. Barrow's walks and strikeout rates are very close together, and it's a plus walk. It's a better than average walk rate, and it's a better than average strikeout rate. The fact he's able to marry those and do them at the same time, this is not someone who gets on base with an uber patient approach. This is someone who has plate discipline, who has a really good command of the strike zone. Again, as a very young player in St. Lucie at 19 years old, 20% better than league average. That was still good enough for the Mets to jump him up to some high A Brooklyn. I don't know what's going to happen when he gets a full year in Brooklyn at 20 years old, because he turns 20. Is he already 20? He's turned 20 soon. No, he's already 20 years old. He turned 20 in August. So I don't know what's going to happen, but if he crushes Brooklyn as a 20-year-old, now you're on the fast track. This becomes a super prospect and someone that plays mostly third, has a cannon of an arm, but has gotten time at second, has gotten time at short, like you mentioned. This is the guy to be excited about in the Mets system right now in terms of someone who's probably not being talked about a ton, but something can happen really quickly if things progress the right way.
Yeah, the guy for me at number 9 is similar in that he was a teammate of Boston Barrow at the end of the year in Brooklyn. A dude who's a little bit more under the radar, I think, in the prospect world. He wasn't in the top 30 for Baseball America mid-season for the Mets prospects, but Nick Morabito is a guy who I just kind of can't ignore. So I've got him at number 9. He's an outfielder. It seems like athleticism-wise, he could play center field.
Center fielder, yeah.
And yeah, it seems like he can play center. That's always a huge thing with these prospects is whether or not they have the ability to play that position. He's a really good athlete, and he's put up 2 seasons now at the minor leagues with an over 400 on base percentage. Like that, I think alone is really fascinating. Now, yes, 530 of that on base percentage came in low A ball last year with St. Lucie. But even when he played those final 95 in Brooklyn, a 373 on base, an OPS at 747, the power, I'm not sure what it's ever going to turn into. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of pop in that bat necessarily, but he stole 48 bases, had his 37% on base rate at high A as a 21-year-old. I'm just really interested in what this guy could be. It seems like there might be a higher floor player here than ceiling necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's good. And you do love Morillo. Morillo is also like super fits the mold of the players you like. Just an athlete who can kind of get around, has good barrel control inside the zone. He was another one of my honorable mentions. He didn't make my list, but him being able to play center field really changes his nexus as a prospect. Like, you're probably guys are going to hear us talk a lot about player archetypes on these, where it's kind of like you have to look at floor when you make these prospect lists, because if someone doesn't really have defensive value, then it all comes on the bat. And if anything goes wrong with the bat, then you're no longer a useful player eventually at the major league level. So that kind of thing right there. And Morillo, I know his prospect rank jumped up a lot in Baseball America. They were like, okay, he actually is handling center field. Now suddenly him being a center fielder, it's hard to... This is going to sound funny. It's hard not to make the major leagues if you're like a plus defensive center fielder with at least an average bat. And you just did your center fielder rankings for the channel. I mean, the 12 days rankings are over now. It's Christmas week. But the center fielders in baseball are not very good right now because it's a very defensive first position. It's what shortstop used to be like in the 80s and 90s. So a guy like Morillo who can get to the league, play center field, and hit enough, especially get on base enough with tons of speed, that's awesome. Number 8, I have someone who had a very disappointing year, who's been my favorite prospect in the Mets system, but I can't keep ranking him as high as I had just because so many things went wrong. And it's Drew Gilbert. I'm ready to throw out the entire year. He got injured. The hamstring was bad. His defense was bad. He pulled the ball too much. He popped the ball up too much. Everything was way off. But I still find myself drawn to a lot of the things I liked out of Drew Gilbert, especially when he was coming out of college and was drafted by the Astros from Tennessee, where he hit the ball 115 miles an hour with it wasn't a wood bat, but he still got 115. Even if you take 5 miles an hour off that's still better than an exit velocity he's had in the minors, so I still know there's something in there. And in college, that last year in the SEC, he had 86th percentile chase rate and a 98th percentile average exit velocity. So I still know those things happened. I can't imagine that this is a guy that was as bad as he was last year, make his little contacts he did last year, make his little hard contact in the right parts of the field he did last year. I just also have to knock him down for the same reason I was talking about you with Morillo. He's not going to be a center fielder anymore. I think we're kind of aware of that. He's gotten a little too thick boy. He's probably going to be stuck in a corner. And if you're stuck in a corner and you can't hit 20 home runs, it's hard to find it's hard to find a way that you are like a 162 game a year player in the major leagues. But I'm never going to doubt Drew Gilbert. Like, he's a dog. He's a monster. His hair's on fire every time he plays baseball. Still love him, but definitely have to knock down the ceiling quite a bit after what's happened the last few months.
Yeah, no, I get it. I've Drew Gilbert a little bit higher up on my rankings, and he's just someone who, like, I mean, even before he was a Met and before he was an Astro and you found out about him, I was like, I love this dude at Tennessee. Like, he's such a dog. So he's got a little special place in my heart that I'm always going to be a little biased for him, a little bit higher up. At number 8, I went with someone who flew up some rankings this year. I think is a really exciting player, but he's not going to be the new Shohei Ohtani, the country Ohtani, as they were calling him, or whatever, Cowboy Shohei. Nolan McLean, I have him at number 8. The reason I'm a little more, I want to say, like, skittish on Nolan McLean rather than probably where you have him, because I know you love him because a lot of the raw pitching stuff is pretty insane. It's just the fact that I feel like his development is going to take a little bit longer. I think we might just be like maybe 1 year ahead. This upcoming season for what McLean can do as a pitcher when he really does just focus on being a pitcher fully, I think will be really telling, because this is either where you have the slow burn, I think, with Nolan McLean of just like becoming a pitcher, or all of a sudden it's going to be like meteoric rise. He's insane. So last year at AA, when he got up there after a really nice job in Brooklyn, he struggled a little bit more, and that's supposed to happen. The control wasn't necessarily as good. Wasn't striking as many batters. The stuff is crazy. The stuff is out of control. Insane. If you're a stuff guy, freak of nature, Nolan McLean. And he has not pitched very much in his career, so he's still learning. That's where the excitement is for him. But, I mean, listen, like at 8 for me, it's not because of me thinking anything poorly of him. It's just like I need to see a little bit more before I start going crazy with him.
Yeah, everything you say, that's true. I definitely have Nolan McLean a little bit higher, and we'll talk about that in a second. But my number 7, I feel bad that I might have this guy ranked behind where you have him ranked, because this is my guy of all guys. It's Jesus Baez.
Wow, you do?
Yeah. I have Baez, Gilbert, and the next prospect on this list in a tier, and they're all very close together, and they could all jump around a little bit, mostly because I love McLean and another pitcher in the system so much. I just put them ahead because I love pitching. But I had Baez in the top 10 last May before it was cool.
You did.
I saw Jesus Baez with like a 14% strikeout rate, a crazy hard hit rate, an unbelievable chase rate, and I was like, oh my god, this is a monster. And then we saw him in the spring breakout game, which was one of the best things Major League Baseball's done to market their young players last March. And he hit the ball 112 miles an hour off DJ Hurts, who wound up being a legitimately good Major League pitcher this entire season. So seeing that, especially now with the context looking back, it's just crazy. Baez last year in low A ball had one of the best combinations of contact rate, power, discipline, and the whole thing. In terms of exit velocity, the second highest average exit velocity for any player last year at A ball. The only one who was higher than him was Josue Briseño, the catcher first base prospect of the Tigers that hits the piss out of the ball. And he was ahead of some pop-up prospects. No, Brandon Winokur was in the draft 2 years ago. I think you liked, but doesn't make a lot of contact, if I'm not mistaken.
Not a huge guy for me either way.
And then Kevin McGonigal, who was a huge pop-up prospect this year. A lot of people loved in the Tigers organization. So I think that someone who makes as much contact as Baez and makes that much hard contact as Baez, doesn't expand the zone, doesn't strike out. It's crazy. The only thing with Baez, again, similar to Gilbert, is going to be similar to the next guy. The defensive value will likely never be there. We're looking at most likely a third baseman, shortstop going forward. He's also not a big guy. He's kind of more of like that stout frame. I know Saris calls these the fire hydrant ball players, where it's like you're thick in the middle and you can rotate really fast. That's what Jesus Baez is. The Mets have been trying him a little bit at shortstop, which tells me that, I mean, if you make any prospect play shortstop, it just increases their trade value like this every single time they do it. But he, to me, is someone that he got into Brooklyn last year. He tore his meniscus, but he was holding his own there in the week and a half he played. If he gets into Brooklyn, similar to Boston Barrow, and he rakes, we suddenly have a monster on our hands, and that monster will be Jesus Baez.
Yeah, I've got him a little bit higher. I'm buying into the hype. The dude's so loud. Like, he's just a loud player, and I like that. My guy at number 7, I feel dirty. I hate it. I hate them doing this, and I'm going to admit right now, I can't wait to be wrong. And I think I just might have gotten a little bit of prospect fatigue, and I think I might be too close. I think the magnifying glass might be making things too big where I'm missing what's actually there, and that's going to be Ryan Clifford for me. And the reason being is that Ryan Clifford is a first baseman. He's not going to play the outfield. He is a first baseman. And while the power numbers are impressive because he does hit the ball really hard, there's just something that makes me feel uncomfortable about a guy who is striking out as much as he did at AA, who also has such good control of the zone. It's a very confusing archetype, and I feel like as much as we love the 3 true outcome ideal, which is the home run, strikeout, walk, I feel like as we've gone more and more in Major League Baseball the last few years, it's a little less sustainable than maybe we once thought. Like guys like Joey Gallo, who were way better athletes and stuff and had crazy prospect pedigree, fizzled out very, very quickly with this approach. And I'm afraid that Clifford's a little too close to that. So that's why I have him a little bit down. But the on-base percentage is crazy. 370 on base last year as a 20-year-old, most of his time being in AA. Unbelievable. 20 homers, 20 doubles. That's really great. 800 OPS. Like there's nothing to really complain about. I'm just worried more about what that build could look like as he gets older, moving up these ranks.
Yeah, again, great transition because I had Ryan Clifford next time I listed number 6. And again, Clifford, Baez, Gilbert, they're all in a similar spot for me because, like you said, we're getting corner players, corner infield, corner outfield. So the bats have to carry these guys if they want to become Major League regulars, which, again, limits their ceiling a lot. But the thing that scares me about Clifford is it's uber patience that's leading to these high on base percentage and these home runs. Because when you're in the minor leagues like this, how many good breaking balls are you going to see in a game or even in a week? Not many at all. So you can spit. You know it's not going to be a strike zone. Eventually you hunt the hanger, you get the fastball, and that's how you get the 18 home runs in 98 games at AA as 20-year-old, which is amazing. And that's a big thing. I've heard some research that says if every year below younger you are than the average age at the level, you can add 20 to 30 points of WRC plus onto that player's final year stats. And Clifford was 133 as a 20-year-old in AA. So that means he was basically like a 185 WRC plus guy, theoretically. But that also comes from, but again, maybe there's just the fact that he has to keep moving up because he's kind of just toying with these guys. He's not really getting better. He's just kind of playing the game better. It kind of feels like minor league baseball for 20-year-old Ryan Clifford feels like more of a video game than professional sports. But I have someone who knows Ryan Clifford, who worked with him in the Astros, and he said that he is just a freak of nature. Like the exit velocities are insane. The power is unmistakable. I still think the comp is Lucas Duda as someone who's going to take a ton of pitches, but he's going to get a hold of one. He's going to park it in the seats. And I think that
he's going to hit 30 home runs in the majors for sure.
Yeah, like Lucas Duda is misunderstood because he made one of the worst plays in franchise history. And also he just happened to be He happened to be good on teams that were bad, so he wasn't really appreciative enough. And if we had Lucas do it at the same time that we have modern StatCast, he would have had a very different view in the lexicon of professional baseball.
You can look back at his 2015 season on StatCast. That was, I think, the first year that they actually have data. It is fascinating. He would have gotten paid.
paid. But that's still my con for Clifford. I just would love to see, again, I don't know if there's like a training directive here, but just swing the bat, brother. Just swing the bat, because those walks are not going to be there when you get to the majors, because people are going to be diving breaking balls everywhere they can, and the strikeouts are going to keep going up because the breaking balls will get better, the velocity will get higher. But again, he still played all of last year at just 20 years old. He just turned 21 in July, so he's going to play most of the season at 21 again. He could touch AAA as a 21-year-old, that's freaky levels. He is the one who I think might have the most range in this Mets prospect system, because the bat could be super elite. Like, the bat could be a carrying card that could make him one of the best first base prospects in baseball. It's not quite exactly there perfectly right this second now.
I'm going to say something crazy. There's super a world where, just thinking about what the Mets could look like in 2025, just putting it out there, just so that's on video, can be heard. If Ryan Clifford goes nuclear, and let's say the Mets' first third base opportunity is a little open. Not that Mark Vientos won't be playing well, but maybe he's got to play third base. Maybe they find a spot over at first base if Ryan Clifford goes nuclear those first 2 months of the season. Don't be surprised if you see him get called up. Like, what if the guy puts up 20 homers in 2 months?
Yeah.
How do you not call him up?
It's probably a 5 to 7% chance of that happening. Maybe.
But I'm just putting it out there right now.
It's possible, yeah.
We've thrown a lot of things out, and we've been pretty good so far. So I'm going to throw that one out there as well.
We have. Definitely remember the hits.
Yeah. I'm going to jump to number 6 for me. We've already mentioned him, so I'm not going to talk too much about him. I had Jesus Baez as 6, and I had Drew Gilbert at 5. So I think we've kind of covered a lot of the same players in that same range. And again, Drew Gilbert for me, he's just a dog. I'm taking that X-dog all the way. And I'm just chalking up bad year last season to the fact that he was injured. I'm also chalking that up too as maybe why we think he could not be as much of a center fielder. Just thinking that maybe with a fully healthy year, he might be a little bit more athletic next season. We'll take a look and see.
Totally, we hope for that. But also as a guy like Drew Gilbert, who's just like muscle hamster. You get a little tight when you get that. That's how things start to get pulled. Again, he's too much of a good attitude guy to ever quit. So, but I don't think the ceiling is the same place.
And to be honest, Mets will probably trade him given any opportunity if they get pitching for him. So
I mean, I think most of these guys would. So I hope it doesn't happen in between recording this, in between putting it out. But my number 5, another guy we talked about a lot. It's not going to do a lot on him, but Nolan McLean.
Yep.
He's part of this Mets new pitch trait revolution in the minor leagues. We're like, we want fastballs, we want sweepers, we want velocity, like we want pitch movement. We don't really care about pitch stats these guys anymore. And the fact that Nolan McLean is no longer a two-way player, this is going to be the first full season of his life. He's not trying to do both things. A full off season of only focusing on pitching. I think that's kind of part of the inverse of what you were saying about there's a long way to go. We need some development. He really did have a lot of trouble at AA, but you should have. That's one of the biggest jumps you're going to have in the minor leagues. It's not probably the biggest from high A to AA. It's the fact that he has the crazy fastball. It's gone up to 98 miles an hour. He has the sweeper that already would be one of the best pitches in Major League Baseball if given the chance. He had a cutter, little tight slider that he was working on last year that really bridges those two pitches together. I've heard a lot of coaches, Ernest Dove tweeted about this, Mets prospect connoisseur, that coaches love Nolan McLean. Apparently he's a sponge, eager to learn, wants to get better. And that's a big thing with a guy like McLean, who came in as a massive project and has probably already inside the organization been considered a massive, massive hit.
Yeah, and I think that is very much the kind of players the Mets are looking for on the pitching side, probably just in general in their organization, guys who aren't satisfied with where they're at. They want to continue to get better. And one of those guys who's had an unbelievable rise, and we just got a bunch of new information on his stuff days ago on Twitter from when we were recording this, Tong, my number 4 prospect in the Mets organization. He was disgusting last year. He was one of the most exciting pitching prospects in baseball, flew up the ranks. I think finished the year with a near 40% K rate throughout the entire season. At low A, I think he had a 50% K rate at one point. He had scoreless inning streaks. His stuff was out of control good last year, and he was someone who the Mets got their hands on. They got him in the pitching lab, Eric Yeagers, Jeremy Hefner, whatever it is, whoever's pulling all the strings, making everything happen. He was like a little piece of clay, and they're turning him into something that can be hopefully a future frontline starter for the New York Mets.
Yeah, Tong also was my number 4 guy, which is great that we're in sync there. Bang, boop. He's just, again, in terms of pitch traits, which seems like the new Mets regime is more into than anything else, he could be the biggest freak in the minor leagues besides like Jackson Jobe. Like truthfully, like the way
he's a major league pitcher now.
Yeah, exactly. Like the way he gets his fastball. Like our guy Isaac Groffman, that was like I think his first big thread last spring. talked about how Tong releases the fastball so perfectly above his head. It almost feels like he's releasing it from a lefty's arm slot than a righty's arm slot because it's so far back right here. He's just bang, just gets on the hitter.
Did you see on Twitter they put like the overlay of, and they're different sizes, but him and Tyler Glass now have like the same release, which is crazy.
Yeah, I believe Isaac said that in his thread too. And Jared Seidler, prospect extraordinaire at Baseball Prospectus, said that in terms of all pitchers that pitched in the PSL last year, which is the league that St. Lucie played in, Joe Tong had, and that's also where we have StatCast, why we have his data, 100th percentile inverted vertical break and 95th percentile cut, which that means you have one of the best fastballs on earth. That's it. I can say that simply. And I was looking at their guy TJ Stats' a pitch movement plot for Jonah Tong. Jonah Tong's fastball basically breaks his plot because the inverted vertical break goes so far above the chart. It's like 22, 23 inches inverted vertical break. It's stupid. Like, that's a fastball that will play all the time. He is a little smaller, and the control's still not good, so there's a little bit of injury risk. But he's also still only 21. He won't even turn 22 until the middle of next June. He's still probably growing into his body a little bit. And he actually got to Double-A last year, towards the end of the season. He had a start against the Somerset Patriots, the Yankees Double-A team, who's always one of the best teams in that Eastern League. They dominate over there. In the playoffs every single year, they do great. He went 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, no hits, no walks, no runs. Struck out Spencer Jones for 3 of those 9 strikeouts. Like, this is a true freak of nature. And if he's a 21-year-old that starts the year in Double-A with these kind of pitch specs and that kind of 2024 season he had between Low A and High A, like, there's a chance that Jonah Tong goes nuclear and he becomes one of the hottest pitching prospects in the entire league.
Fingers crossed. That would be amazing.
Pitching
another dude who I'm loving even more. Number 3, Carson Bench. I'm all about the Carson Bench hype train. I love what we saw in the very, very small sample last year at A-ball, 15 games, couple homers, couple doubles, 8 RBIs, he stole bases. And the biggest thing here is it looks like he might be able to play some center field, which is awesome because he has a cannon of an arm. He's a good athlete, and Baseball America on their write-up again for the 2025 preseason top 10 for the Mets. Benj shares some attributes with 2014 Mets first-rounder Michael Conforto as an athletic left-handed hitting college outfielder with all-around ability. Ultimately, the whole may be greater than the sum of the parts, with Benj's athleticism and work ethic being separators. So a more athletic Michael Conforto, yeah, I mean, sign me up. He gave us like 6 amazing years. I'd love to see him play center field like that.
Dude, I was looking at Michael Conforto's beginning of his career the other day because I wrote him up for a Row the World piece. It was stupid how good he was.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
So if you're telling me this guy could be Conforto but play center field, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm all in.
Because funny, the thing about Conforto that people love, I think it was before some of like the baseball lexicon changed in the public. They were like, the guy knows how to use the opposite field. Where now that's something that Benj is actually quite good at, but it's something that people don't like anymore. Is you have to get the pull power. And Benj pulled the ball a lot last year when that small sample he had in St. Lucie. It was over 50%, but not 50%. But it was higher. It was the highest of all things. But he had over 50% ground ball rate. That was the problem. Yes. Pulling on the ground, fly balls the opposite direction. That's kind of the opposite of what you want. That's the Brett Beatty method that has kept him as a quadruple A player, which is not good. But all these things together, Benj is a guy who should have dominated St. Lucie, and he did dominate. 150 WRC plus as a college hitter, 21 years old. That's great. He's going to be in Brooklyn next season. This Brooklyn team's going to have a lot of talent. Definitely a place we should go spend some time next year.
Boy, Ryan Lambert will be out there probably a little bit.
Ryan Lambert will be out there drinking some eggs. But Benj is someone that, with the athleticism, with the work ethic, with playing center field, this is a floor pick. It is. And that's why I really wanted to put him behind Jonah Tong, but just there's so much more floor on Carson Bench, especially as a first round pick. He just looks like if things click right for Carson Bench, again, it's an upshot. But if things even don't click right, you just have a really good player, and that's awesome.
Yeah, which would be great. All right, number 2. I got a feeling we're going to disagree here. I went Brandon Sproat at number 2. Who'd you go?
I went Jet Williams.
Okay, and Jet Williams was my number 1. So who do we want to talk about first here? Want to go Jet Williams first?
We go Jet Williams first, yeah.
Yeah, so the reason I went Jet Williams number 1 over Brandon Sproat is I just chalk up last year to a lost season, the hand injury, everything. Totally. Like we saw him out in the fall league. Like Jet is a premier athlete, which again, as you know, I love the athleticism stuff, especially with young players. You kind of just can't teach dudes to be much faster and more athletic than they already are when they're like 20 years old. And in the fall league, while Jet wasn't dominant, he did all the same stuff that he always does. He gets on base, hits the ball hard, can play a bunch of positions, played the outfield a bunch too, and looked really good out there. We had him on the podcast. We talked to him. He's willing to play anywhere, to learn any position. He wants to be a part of this Mets future, wants to be a Major League Baseball player, and he knows that he lost a lot of time last year due to the injury. But even him, he mentioned, it was really cool that I got to even play some games at AAA. knowing that I was struggling a little bit in AA during the season. Like, he has such an interesting build that you don't see too often, where he's a smaller guy who plays a lot bigger than he actually is. And I know, like, I feel like a lot of people love to throw the Jose Altuve thing, and it's just like not fair because Jose Altuve is a Hall of Famer and Jet Williams is 21, not even 21 years old yet. I don't think he might've just turned it actually in November, but I'm really excited because the athleticism is there. The bat to ball skills are there. It's now just about putting it all together for a full healthy season for Jet.
Yeah. And it was really important, I think, for Jet to go to the AFL because while he had the injury, and it was the ankle, right? He did wind up re-injuring the ankle, but he still got through.
Didn't he hurt his hand too at one point, I thought, as well?
Oh, yeah, the hand. Talked about the surgery of the hand, yeah. But it was, I thought it was really important to go out there because he went through his whole season. Again, trials, tribulations, it was injuries, lost season, whatever. He did not hit a professional home run this year in the minor leagues. And I think for a guy like Jet, who was at his size, the power is always going to be the thing that gets called into question. He has to be able to hit for at least a modicum of power to be considered this breakthrough impact prospect that he's been billed as a first-round pick that I think he can and will be. So for him to go to the AFL, get the ball over the fence a few times, I think it's just great to see that happen. A lot of extra base hits, a couple triples as well. For me, it's just in terms of the number one prospect in the Mets system. Oh, it was wrist. It was wrist injury and ankle. That's what it was, wrist, not hand, wrist. And again, wrist saps your power. So again, not holding it against him if the power went down this year, but just nice to see the ball go over the fence a few times, as simply as I could possibly put it. But in terms of best prospect in the system, it's hard for me to think that, like, do you think Jet Williams ever hits 20 home runs in Major League Baseball season?
I think he can. Yeah, I do. I actually do think that Jet will hit 20. And I don't think it's much higher than 20, which is why I was like, please, everyone stop saying Jose Altuve stuff because Altuve hit like 35 home runs. But I think he can very much be like a 20 homer, 25 stolen base a year guy. And I think to me, that's borderline top prospect stuff right there. It's at least in the conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to get Jet. I mean, I want him to develop as he has to develop, but I'd love to see Jet Williams and a lot of these other guys in AAA at some point because I want to be able to see how hard he's hitting the ball. Because last year, if you guys have been listening to this podcast since the summer, Mark and I, especially me, kind of flipped on Luis Angel Acuna after he got through that horrible first month of AAA because I was like, this guy's hitting the ball really hard and very consistently. He's not getting the top end exit velocities, but every single ball he's putting in play, 105, 106, 106, 106, and he got to, I think, 109 as his biggest for the season. I'd like to see Jet be able to live in that world and possibly get some more upshot past that because just being able to hit the ball hard consistently is going to be his defining factor with being like a fine baseball player and someone who's like a 4-win player. And that's going to be a big difference between, again, whether he can be the top prospect, the impact guy, or again, just another ball player.
Now, go ahead and talk about your boy Sproat, who you've been all over since the start. And got to say, I mean, listen, I got him at 2, and there was thought about him at number 1. He was so ridiculously good last year. Like, oh my God.
No, it was stupid. Again, I wanted to congratulate everyone listening to this podcast because we did it together. We made Brandon Sproat a top 100 prospect. He's like a top 30 prospect now in some lists, which is amazing from where we were last year when I was banging that drum. But he has legit ace upside. He's the best prospect in the system. It's a testament to how great this new pitching lab and pitching development is the Mets are doing. Also how great the college scouting has been. Just how clean this Mets draft process seems to have been the last few years since these new regimes have taken over. But he has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He has a nasty curveball. He has a disgusting changeup. He has a stink slider. He's got 4 pitches like that can play in the major league level right now. And we still have a couple more months probably till he gets there, but it's a good chance we see him in 2025. The changeup is also a crazy out pitch. It's a big issue sometimes, these guys getting to the major leagues, being able to face guys on both sides of the plate. His changeup allows him to do that. I remember it was my favorite thing about Sproat last year, which made everything like sink into me and be like, this guy could be a lot different. It was his second start in AA. I don't remember who it was against, but he was facing a lefty, and he threw this guy a backdoor slider for strike 1, a curveball in the dirt for strike 2, and then a whiff changeup fading away for strike 3. And I was like, holy shit. Like that, there's no pitchers in their first full professional season that can do things like that. And the comfortability to do that to a left-handed batter in your second start in a new level that's much more advanced than the level you just dominated is crazy. By the end of the year, he had the second highest strikeout minus walk rate of any pitcher that was in AA. AAA was not very good, but AAA is super weird. We've talked about that a lot. I'm happy for Sproat. I'm proud of the Mets pitching development. I really, really hope we get another big year. We get like the Christian Scott April and May, and by June we have him in Citi Field.
That's honestly exactly what I was going to say. I was like, give us a couple good months in AAA. Show us again that like there's been improvements that you made during the offseason, that you are a capable major league pitcher, and hopefully we see you like Christian Scott, just maybe not making your debut in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, just the only thing. Hey, he still pitched well there though.
Did pitch well, pitched really well. That game was electric. That start was so good. Can't wait for him to come back.
I know. I remember I was at that Braves game the start after, and I was like, died chills. I was like, I can't believe how good this guy's going to be. This is the best. And then His elbow popped.
Dude, how insane is that? This is going to be the end, by the way. We have no more prospects to talk about here.
Well, that's 1 through 10. We did it.
That is our 1 through 10. But just for the people who are sticking around a little bit past this, maybe on the podcast or YouTube, Christian Scott pitched in 2024. Like that's like that season was so insanely long that Christian Scott made 9 starts and he wasn't even a big part at all of the playoff run.
No, literally, and he's someone that we would have been able to help a lot if we could have had him there. Which is
at least a big reliever to come in after Jose Quintana throws 4.
Yeah, God, it's a shame. But I mean, I think this Mets prospect list right now is deeper than we've had in a long time. And we didn't mention guys like Ryan Mauricio, who's going to contribute to the Major League team, and Luis Angel Acuna. Those are 2 guys who are going to be competing for spots on opening day, be in direct competition to challenge Jeff McNeil for second base. And we don't know how third base is going to wind up either. But this Mets team, this new generation of the Mets, we're going to have high-paid superstars filling out a good part of our roster. It's vital that we have young, inexpensive, controllable hitters who are trustworthy and solid, and pitchers that we can put on this team and still compete for playoff spot and World Series rings. And that's, I think, what we've been able to do these last few years, that system. I think that's a really, really great thing.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since you've been able to talk about 10 Mets prospects that you think all could eventually make the major leagues. It's not been that easy.
And with like flying colors, like making it be like, damn, these guys are going to be good.
Yeah, so I think it's a good spot. Steve Cohen said he wanted to build the farm along with building up this major league roster. Seems like he's doing it. We'd love to know who your guys' favorite prospect is in the comment section. You can tweet at us. Let us know what you're thinking. Maybe you got some information you want us to know. We'd love to hear it. We appreciate all the feedback as always. Enjoy your guys' holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Whatever's going on. We appreciate you guys. And thank you so much. That's it. That's all we got. Follow James on Twitter at
James_Shiano.
Giraffe Neck Mark with a C. We'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace out.
Peace out. See you guys next time. Let's go Mets.